Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and I am so excited to share that I have twin girls now. So I'm a mom of now newly twin girls and a toddler who is 2 years old. So our house is wild. But I wanted to kind of share, I know my last video, it was very hectic. It was my labor and delivery vlog. It wasn't what I expected at all, so I kind of wanted to pop on here and quickly, it might not be that quick, share my birth story and kind of what happened, because everything happened so fast and I just had the time and kind of gotten a routine down where I can sit down and start filming videos again with the girls. And Cinco, our life has been nothing short of hectic. So like I said, I wanted to pop on here and kind of give you the backstory of everything that happened, behind the scenes, and then hopefully if the girls are up to it, I will show them at the end. They do need to eat in the next hour or so, so let's go ahead and jump right into what happened. So I think the last video I filmed, I was 30. I had to have been 32 weeks and I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I feel like they're coming. But I said that, but I really didn't feel that. I went past due with Cinco, my 2-year-old, so I really didn't know. I really didn't think anything of it, that they were going to come so soon. I think I mentioned in the last video, I was on my weekly appointments because baby A, which is Ava, she was measuring in probably about she was measuring like 4%, then 3%, then 1%. So I was on weekly appointments to monitor her growth. Aria was also small, but she was a little bit bigger, so we weren't as concerned with Aria as we were with Ava. So November 18th is one day off from work to go to my high risk doctor and my OB, kind of in the same day to knock it all out. So on Thursday, I just, had the day off. So I took it slow, woke up, had breakfast, and then I had my doctor's appointment. I think that ended up being a 4 o'clock appointment. So it was a pretty late appointment. Everything seemed normal that day. Movement was great. Everything was great. So I went to my appointment at 4 o'clock and we did a NST and a, what did we do? I forget what it was called. I already forget the names of the appointments, but it's where a growth check. We did a growth check. And we were doing the growth checks every 2 weeks, but the NSTs every week. And at that appointment, we actually did the growth scan first, and then we did the NST second. So we did the growth scan, and then I hopped on the monitors, and the baby sounded great. The nurses kept coming in. They're like, oh my gosh, your baby sound fantastic. They kept saying that. And then I think there was just, so I was going to get off the monitors. And then the nurse came in and said, oh, the doctor just wants to hear the baby A, because she's small. She just wants to hear her a little bit longer. And I was like, okay. She goes, but they sound great. I mean, they sound fantastic. So, I went back on the monitors probably for another 15 minutes. I was on the monitors probably like 30 to 40 minutes, something like that at this point. And I'm texting, I'm emailing, I'm just like, kind of like not thinking anything of it. So then a nurse said, okay, so everything looks good. The doctor will be in shortly just to, talk about everything and kind of get a game plan for the next week. And still didn't think anything of it because I always talk to doctor after my appointments. And so, like I said, this is the high risk doctor. So the high risk doctor comes in and the first thing she says is, you ready to have some babies today? And at that point I was only 34 weeks and maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 34 weeks and 3 days. So I was not expecting to have babies. I did not want to have babies because that means, 9 to 10 times out of 10, they're going to be in the NICU. And I was prepared to have a NICU, maybe a couple days in the NICU, but 34 weeks would be most likely a few weeks. It could be up into their due date. You just never know. Uh-oh, I think a baby's crying. So like I said, she said, you ready to have some babies today? And immediately my face went into like a I just immediately started crying. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, baby A is still very small. So, and then there was, I guess, something on the monitors. And she said with the blood flow, there was just something she didn't like about it. And it's basically better safe out than in at this point. So I couldn't really process it. I was just kind of crying. And then she wasn't my normal OB. She was my high risk doctor. So we didn't have that, that rapport. And she's very like straight to the point, very analytical, very, this is what the data shows and this is what you're going to do. So she's like, well, that's a normal response, and she's like, the babies typically at 34 weeks, babies should be fine. So I'm like kind of freaking out at this point. So she's like, you need to just go straight to labor and delivery. They'll know what to do from there. That's kind of all she gave me. So then at that point, I'm calling Josh. I'm calling my mom, although my mom lives in another state across the U.S. I have no family here. She was planning on coming the week after the babies were born, because that's kind of the time we thought maybe that's when we should really be on baby watch. So I did not have childcare set up for Cinco, and this is a Thursday night or Thursday early evening. So we are kind of freaking out. It was totally different when you are just having one baby, but when you're having two babies and then you also have a baby at home, it's hard. You have to find childcare. So luckily my coworker and friend, she was able to kind of rush over to our side of town to stay with Cinco at our house, and Josh was able to go to the hospital. Problem was that was going to take about an hour and a half, and then in the meantime I was rushing to the labor and delivery. As soon as I get there, I'm thinking, they'll induce me, so I'll have some time and kind of, get my bearings and things like that. And so the nurse immediately was like, oh, so you're here for your emergency C-section. And I was like, what? And she's like, oh, you didn't know you were going to have an emergency C-section? And I said, well, I know I'm supposed to come to labor and delivery, but the doctor never mentioned an emergency C-section. She just said you need to have the babies. So I naturally thought I was just going to get induced and go into labor and go through all the things. So I'm processing having baby. I'm processing going to a doctor's appointment, then processing having twins, processing that they're going to be 6 weeks early, and now emergency C-section. Had no idea this was going to happen on Thursday when I was still had all kinds of standing appointments on Friday for work and all of that. So she's like, it's an emergency C-section. I said, well, my husband won't probably get here for another, we're trying to get our child care situation and all that. And I was like, can we wait, for my husband? And she's like, I don't know. The doctor said, or the, high-risk doctor said it's an emergency. So we kind of we need to put the babies on the monitors right now. And we need to get everything situated. And hopefully, as long as the babies are okay, he may be able to make it. So now I'm processing. I may have to have this C-section by myself, no husband, no family, nothing. So I am no short of pretty much having a meltdown. I'm having a meltdown by myself in the hospital room, literally just crying. And every nurse that walked in, the main nurse was like, she's processing everything. She would tell every nurse, she's processing everything, give her some time. She would have to prep the nurses because I was pretty much freaking out because I was by myself. So I'm talking to my mom. My mom's like, Ashley, she was very calm. She's always very calm. She was able to get the next flight for the next day. So, that was good. But I was still just freaking out because I was not prepared for a C-section at all. So anyways, my actual OB comes in and she says, she's very calm. She's like, Ashley, it's going to be okay. Your baby sound great on the monitor. So it's not, she goes, it's not an emergency C-section, but it's an urgent C-section. So she's like, we're not going to start without Josh. Everything looks great. She was very, very reassuring. So pretty much they got me all prepped and they said, as soon as Josh gets here, we'll go straight to the C-section. So, From the moment I walked into labor, it took me about 10 minutes to get from my doctor's appointment to the hospital, and from the hospital to getting everything prepped, probably 15-20 minutes. Finally, Josh comes in like 30 minutes. He was able to rush down. My friend was able to get to the house, get Cinco, and pretty much in 30 minutes, I was once he got there, he put his scrubs on and we rolled into the C-section. I mean, Josh did not have time to like tie his shoes. He went from hospital to operating room. So that was a huge transition for him too. You know, like I said, my first delivery, I was in labor for probably like 24 hours. We were chatting, we were joking. This was like, no, I was already prepped and ready to go to the operating room. So anyways, he gets there, he changes, and they roll us off in probably 2 minutes. And of course, Josh has to sit out so I can get my spinal tap. So they roll you into the operating room, which is it's a very sterile environment, obviously, very cold, very bright, just what you would think of an operating room. And it's crazy because you're fully awake and kind of aware of everything. So you can see there's probably, I don't know, 10, 15 doctors in there, because each baby had their own team. My doctor had her squad, her team, and there were just people all around. I mean, everyone obviously had a job. Although it was an emergency C-section, nothing was chaotic. Everything was very organized and everything had its place, and everyone else seemed very calm, but I was very just rattled naturally. So then we go into the operating room. So Josh was outside waiting for my spinal. Then finally they were able to, once I was fully numb, he was able to come in, and I was already laid down, prepped. You know, everything was kind of laid. All they had to do was cut, basically, when he came in. And so he came in and he kind of just stood right there. And then she said, I'm gonna pinch you super, super hard. I didn't feel it, so they were able to start getting in and cut. So they went in, cut, and I think at that first cut, I don't remember how long that was, but I think Ava came out. And she came out, I mean, I think you can hear her crying in the video, came out guns a-blazing. I mean, she was the tiniest little nugget. She was 3 pounds, 10 ounces. She was probably like that big. But her lung capacity was, the girl could scream. She still could scream. And then at that point, Josh went and checked on her. And that point was when Josh kind of, like, I think everything not took a turn, because he's fine, but he just kind of started, like, you can tell, like, something was not right with Josh. Wet pellets on his head. He was kind of like, he wasn't really responding as quick. And so a nurse kind of said, "Are you okay?" And I kind of noticed too. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." So then he had to sit down. I guess it was very overwhelming for him. And that hospital environment, he didn't see anything, but I think he just got really, really overwhelmed where he was going to pass out. So he had to sit down, and they were still, trying to shake and get Aria out. And I don't know if she was stuck, but all I felt was like them tugging and pulling for Aria to come out. And finally she came out. She was tiny too, but she was bigger than Ava. And she came out 3 minutes later. And she came out. So one baby was born at 6:47, and then the other was born, 42 and 47. 6:42 and 6:47. My doctor's appointment was at 4 o'clock. So if that tells you how quickly everything happened, then there you go. So literally 2 hours later, as I had babies. So obviously both of them, they whisked them away. I didn't get to like hold them obviously or see them. I just saw them kind of when they, showed, when my doctor lifted them and told me like, they were breathing and all of that. And so From there, they roll the babies out, and then Josh went behind the doctors, the NICU doctors, and they rolled them to the NICU. I got stitched up, cleaned up, and then they rolled me back into my room. And then Josh met me back in the room, and the babies were in the NICU. So I was actually okay. Like, I was fine because the babies, they seemed, for the most part, they seemed like they were healthy. I was very much probably just drugged up. It didn't really occur to me how early they were. I was just ready to see the babies. So after they were born, I couldn't see them probably, I think 6 to 8 hours. I cannot remember. I think it's because I couldn't walk. I couldn't move because I was numb from the neck down. I needed to wait until I was able to get into a wheelchair to get Will to the NICU. So the whole time I was just sitting there, like, just waiting for the numbness to wear off. I ate, and the medicine was making me sick. I was getting more and more nauseous, so they kept upping different kinds of nausea medication. That was a whole thing. They even gave me a little patch behind my ear. But then I had a side effect where I was sitting there and I was scrolling my phone and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see the words on the phone. I couldn't read words on paper. My eyes were just getting completely blurred. My blood pressure was fine. Everything was fine. But it ended up being a side effect of the patch medication for nausea. It did make the nurses got freaked out. But then they talked to the doctor and we kind of talked through everything and they realized it was just a side effect. So it was weird, but once I put readers on, I was able to see. So I was wearing reader glasses. I had Josh buy me some. If I wore reader glasses, I was able to see my phone, and that actually happened. It actually happened for a couple of days. It was wild. But anyways, I ate, and then probably about 6 to 8 hours later, I was able to get a little bit of feeling. And I was feeling better, and the nurse was like, if you could get in the wheelchair and you sit down, do not stand up in the NICU, I'll let you go to the NICU. I was like, fine, whatever. I'll go. I just want to go see my babies. So then at that point is when I went to go see the babies. And they were all hooked up to all their monitors. They both had a feeding tube. They had, obviously all the monitors, to mark their, or to check their vitals, and that was really sad. And then they also had for breathing, they had oxygen. I think Aria had more than Ava. Ava came out, the smaller baby, I wouldn't say she was the stronger twin, but she's been fighting the whole time in the womb. So she kind of came out a little bit better than Aria did. Aria wasn't ready. She was chilling. She was, it was a shock. And so obviously they were like, the doctors really pretty much the NICU doctors talked to Josh right when they got there. They told him to expect a NICU stay up until their due date. So that was over a month. And, that was pretty much all we got. They were on a low level of oxygen and then a feeding tube. So they didn't have thank God, any big major issues. I mean, oxygen just to help them breathe and, a feeding tube because they were still so small. So then I started to try to pump to get as much out as I could. And then I would go take it to the NICU so they could shoot it through the feeding tube. But I'll kind of go through the NICU stay probably in another video, the next video. So I stayed in the hospital for, the standard C-section is 2 to 3 days, but my doctor was able to extend it a day. So I think I stayed 4 days in the NICU just because I had babies in the NICU. So she's like, if you want to stay an extra day, we can do that. So she did that. In a C-section, that pain is different. I don't know if it's because, I didn't really tear with Cinco, but I feel like, I was sore, but I feel like C-section, I was in pain. And I had to take, you have to take like high dose or really strong medication. I think I was on Percocet and Motrin, and then obviously all the other stuff for everything else. But that C-section pain, it was hard to bend. I didn't want to sneeze. I mean, it was, ugh. I did 4 days, and maybe every few hours, I was probably in the NICU pretty much all day. Every few hours, I would go wheel down to the NICU, and I was totally fine. Like, I was totally fine. And then the last day when we were leaving is when it hit me, like, oh, my babies are not coming home with me. I have to leave the hospital without these, you know, these little girls. So that was a sad day. So that's when I had like my big breakdown. I think I was very calm, very mad. I was very like, this is what we need to do to be safe, you know, blah blah blah. And then that was the day where I was just like, oh, so this is real. Like, it's very hard to explain, but if any NICU mom is out there, you know how it feels that day you have to leave, and you leave without your babies, and you pretty much, like, you know, at that point, I think I ended up walking. I think I was walking out at that point. Yeah, it was very much, yeah, bye. It was nice to see you. Have a good life. And that was pretty much it. Once I left and our NICU journey started, I was back at the hospital every single day to see the babies. But I can get into their NICU journey in another video, because that'll be probably another 20-minute video. But I just wanted to pop on here and quickly kind of share the backstory about my birth video, because it's so like it's so all over the place, because, you know, I was not in the headspace to like sit there and talk to a camera or anything like that. But thankfully Josh was able to get some things, and I always wanted a video just to have as memories. Both girls are doing great. Obviously they're out of the NICU now. They've been out of the NICU for some time, and so we've had time to adjust and kind of get a schedule together. I mean, they're still preemies, so, you know, we're not really doing much, and they're still very much newborns. They're not acting like a 1 month old or 1 month olds. They're just eat, sleep, poop, you know, being cute. But yeah, that's pretty much the birth story, you know. They're the sweetest little girls, and I will probably get some footage of them and just kind of place it into the video so you can see both girls. But thank you guys so much. I think as I've been sharing my birth or my twin updates and twin stories, I'm seeing more and more people subscribe to my channel, which is awesome. There's a lot more twin mamas out there, and that I've, you know, knew of, which is so awesome. It's a different lifestyle than one baby, for sure. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. I'm happy to answer those. So the next video would probably be their NICU journey. Probably I'll upload that next week. But hopefully I can get back into some type of routine where I am filming some type of videos. I would love to start doing maybe some day in the lives. Just anything that's helpful for me that I can share, or helpful that you guys have that you can share with me, because life is wild, like I mentioned. But yeah, that's pretty much what my plan is for the new year. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. The girls here with me now, so I can show you. Let's see. They're on this little pillow, sleeping, so sweet. So I'll show you, let's do Aria first. No, we'll do Ava first, since she was baby A. So this is Miss Ava, just now waking up. She's so sweet. Look at that face. Oh yeah, and they're not identical, I can tell you that. They look so different. This is Miss Ava. She's tipping the scales at, I think she's 5 pounds. For her last appointment, she was 5 pounds 4 ounces, and she was 3 pounds 10 ounces at birth. So she's gaining weight pretty well. I can do updates on them at their 2 month after their 2 month appointment. But here's Ava. Okay, she needs to go back to sleep. Aria, she was her baby bee. Phew, she's so sleepy. Oh, she was bigger. She was the bigger twin. Can I get the camera? And baby B, she was 5 pounds 13 ounces at her last appointment, but they both probably gained since. Oh, no pictures, please, no pictures. She's so sweet. They were both born with a head full of hair, just like their brother. They're on this like little twinsy pillow. Let me see if I can show you. This little twinsy pillow, knocked out. It's so sweet. Well, that's the end of the video, so I'll see you guys next week. Bye.